Hello, thanks for tuning in and welcome to the pool party. I hope you can swim because we're definitely diving into the deep end with a huge splash of truth, facts, evidence, information, and proof. Swim. Say what you mean. It's talk about talking. How we listen, how we hear, how we speak, how we hear what we're listening to when we speak, how a listener hears what we're saying, if what we're saying, what they're actually hearing and or understanding. Is it clear? Swim. Say what you mean. Well, that's just the beginning of understanding, because after we get that understanding, how do we accept it? How we respond if it's not what we expect is paramount. Are you okay with the truth? Are you man, woman, human, or spiritual enough to accept the truth? Let's find out.
All right.
Welcome to The Swimming Pool with your host, Travis Bridges.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to The Swimming Pool with your host, Travis Bridges. Of course, I'm going to repeat the announcer guy because I didn't think y'all heard what he said. I mean, it was only like a second and a half after he said it that I had to repeat it. What sense does that make? I guess if I had an online coach, they would say, why do you say welcome to the swimming pool after the announcer says it? I don't know why. Don't ask me any questions, okay? Anyway, here's hoping you're having a fantastic, wonderful, and awesome Wednesday evening. And I'm going to say I am just because I'm supposed to say it. But I've had some weird stuff happen. And I'm just going to get right into it. I do have a guest that's coming up in just a few minutes. I'm not going to be long. I'm going to say less than 5 minutes before I take a break and then come back, with the guest. But anyway, I just want to say something. Listen, when you look in the mirror, know who's looking back at you. Don't guess. Don't wonder. Don't let somebody tell you when you're not looking in the mirror that somebody else is the person that's in the mirror. Why do I say that? Because if you have a brain anywhere near this part of your body, like, above your shoulders, anywhere near your shoulders, anywhere around your neck, there's so many things that you can see. That's amazing. There's this saying that goes like this: the youth is wasted on the young. I don't think the youth is wasted on the young. There's no way you can get the kind of wisdom you get when you're young because you need that kind of time in order for it to marinate. So, as a grandfather myself with the grays that I am so proud of, I'm starting to notice things, and it has to do with behavior, starting with my own. One thing I'm going to likely do for the rest of my life is take full responsibility for the guy that's in the mirror when I walk into the bathroom or, anywhere there's a mirror that I can see a reflection of myself. Stop making other people responsible for you and your thoughts, your feelings, your views, your actions. Step up. Be responsible. It's okay. It's okay. There's a wrong and a right because there's a definition. There's a definition of it. It's in the dictionary and you can spell it. WRONG, I think, RIGHT. Okay, there's a wrong and a right. But nobody's actually wrong. I like to use the term inaccurate. And if you find yourself ever inaccurate, don't be embarrassed. It's an opportunity to learn and grow. Don't be offended because someone brings to your attention, or I'm going to talk about me. Someone brought something to my attention where I discovered I was inaccurate, and I found myself offended. And I had to check myself. I had to say, what are you upset for? Because someone called you out on it? What an ego you got. So I'm just going to check myself, and I'm going to leave it right there. Anyway, Anthony Morrow, thank you so much. And the 3 other people that are hanging out with me, I appreciate it. My guest is coming up. It's really interesting. So cool. I had so many dreams and hopes and admirations and adorations. What do you call it? Those things that you get when you have plans and excitement for things that you want to do. That. For this live stream, and it's happening in its own time. I'm comfortable in front of the camera. I remember when I first started, I used to do it in the dark because I wasn't comfortable. Look at some of my old live streams from the COVID concert series. I would kind of hang out in the dark and I would talk, and I thought it was cool. Then I was like, just, come on to the camera. You've got radio background, and I know I have the face for radio. Okay, I get it. But, you don't have to look at me. Just listen to me. I'm just trying to bring content that I think is interesting, and it's not for everybody. Everybody's not going to like me. Everybody's not going to like you. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But if you know who you are, you stay true to yourself. It doesn't matter who likes you or not. Of course, I'm going to speak for myself. I really wish everyone liked me, but everyone doesn't, and it's okay. But when I go to bed at night, I know that I have been as true to myself as I can and as considerate to my fellow brother and sister as I can. Sometimes I fall short. Sometimes I go beyond the call of duty to do my best to be nice and patient and kind to some of the people that I interact with. But anyway, I'm going to take a short break and I'll be right back. So do me a favor. Hold the spot you got. I will be right back.
Archbishop Ralph Dennis and Kingdom Fellowship Covenant Ministries present Kingdom 23, Thriving, the Meta Church Experience. Engage with thought leaders who will transform the way you teach and preach. July 12th through 15th, speakers include Bishop Tudor Bismarck, Dr. Cindy Trim, Archbishop Ralph L. Dennis, Reverend Marissa Farrell, Bishop Gregory Dennis, and more. Thriving, the Meta Church Experience. July 12th through 15th at the Baltimore Convention Center. For more info, kingdomconference2023.org. Don't miss it. Atlanta. It's jazz time. The Family Health Centers of Georgia and Toyota present Sounds of Good Medicine. Don't miss jazz greats Peter White and Vincent Ngala. The smooth voice of Phil Perry.
Baby, will you call me the moment?
Along with saxophonist Paul Taylor. And renowned jazz vocalist Nicole Henry.
And I'm feeling good.
Sounds of Good Medicine Benefit Concert. Hosted by Atlanta's #1 man on stage, MC Lightfoot. Be there Saturday, September 9th, 7 p.m. at the Mabel House Amphitheater in Mapleton, Georgia. Bring your own food and drinks, and parking is absolutely free. An awesome evening of great jazz starting at just $59. Saturday, September 9th. Tickets available at Ticketmaster. Presented by the Family Health Centers of Georgia and Toyota. Mighty Horn Music. Smooth jazz, top 40, R&B, inspirationals, and more. Live from the Hollywood Home Studio. Like, share, subscribe. And thanks for tuning in.
Hello?
Hey,
Hey?
we're live.
Okay. What's happening?
All right. Well, I'm kind of in a laid back mode, and
Okay.
there were many things I wanted to discuss, but I don't think I'm going to get to any of them. If you've ever heard a
Okay.
preacher who said they prepared their notes and then never get to their notes, you ever heard that? And then they just
I
like,
absolutely have. It has happened to me. So, yeah.
yeah. So I want to tell you a little bit about my live stream, and then we'll get right into it.
Okay.
It's called Swim. Swim. is the acronym for Say What You Mean. It's simply a live stream, and I call it Talk About Talking. I like to bring awareness to how we listen, hear, and pay attention to what's being conveyed in any conversation. Oftentimes, we are taught in, I guess, communication courses or whatnot to listen, then repeat what you heard, and then make sure that whoever's speaking to you is saying what you heard and is meaning what they're actually saying. You can do that the long way, or you can do that through body language, eye movement, head nodding, different ways. But one of my favorite books says, in all you're getting, get an understanding. And I am convinced that every argument, every form of chaos starts from a lack of understanding. If more people understood each other and took the time to listen to each other without getting our personal thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs involved when it comes to listening and hearing, so many things would be more peaceful, I believe. I believe that there's an answer to every question and there's a solution to every problem. And before I go any farther, do you believe that yourself? Do you believe there's an answer to every question? And then there's
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, with that being said, I believe listening is the key. Making sure that we hear and clearly understand. Because there's two ways we can respond. You know that saying that says life is 90% of what happens and 10% how you respond to it. We've heard that 1,000 times.
I have.
I believe that part of my favorite book that talks about we're not given the spirit of fear, and that, we're not created in the sense of confusion. We're supposed to be peaceful. Do you agree with that?
I agree.
Anytime and every time, if you do the research and the investigation, if you analyze enough, anytime we're not at peace, it's because of something we are misunderstanding. Can you at least relate to that?
I can relate.
Even if we don't like it, understanding it is easy if we ask enough questions and or do enough research. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's what my live stream is about. Talk about talking, listening, hearing, paying attention, and walking away with a clear understanding of what is actually happening or what has actually happened, as opposed to how we feel, think, and or believe about it. Does that make any sense at all?
It makes a lot of sense.
Okay, now that you know what it's about, my audience has no clue who you are. I don't mention names. I try to stay away from brands, locations and all of that. Every now and then I can't help it. And sometimes I intentionally will, mention, a quote from someone or something like that. But I try to stay away from that because I don't want to focus much on the messenger as much as I want to focus on the message. So
Okay.
I'm going to take us right into where I think we're going to go. Now, yeah, I know, right? And there's a few little small rules, with my live stream. While we're talking, there may be a time where I may say, hold on, or stop, or I may ask you a yes or no question. You will have every opportunity to express or explain yourself. But at the time I ask you for a yes or no, if you can answer yes or no, then by all means, please, consider the order of that particular part of our conversation and just kind of answer. And you don't have to. If you don't want to answer, then of course you're a grown woman. Nobody can tell you what to do. But if I ask a yes or no, if you can, try to answer it. And if I ask you to stop, it's not to interrupt you ever. It's always for clarity. And I will never dominate you, but I will maintain order in our conversation. Because sometimes things can get long and then confusing, and I'm going to do my best to try to drive the bus inside the yellow and the white line instead of all over the road. Cool?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Okay, so first of all, we haven't seen each other in over 20 years. That's correct, right?
And I don't think it's been over 20 years. I think it's been close to that.
Okay, close enough is good enough. So let's just mark it at about 18 and some change.
That sounds like it.
And we haven't actually communicated in well over 10 years. Is that fair to say?
Very long. Yeah, probably much longer, but yeah.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, I'm flipping through social media, as we all do, and I see your head. And I see what you're doing. I'm going to tell my audience what that is in a few. But it prompted me to say, reach out to her. Reach out and touch. Right. Okay. So when I reached out, man, it was like striking a match and putting it in a barn with hay. Because in less than 24 hours, we've spent a significant amount of time just kind of, as the young folk would say, chopping it up and catching up.
We have.
Yeah, and okay, so I'm gonna let you get in a few minutes. Let me just set the stage here. Let me quarterback this, as Denzel would say. Let me quarterback. So during our chopping it up and catching it up, we found our base, so where we know each other from. And we have a lot of things in common based on that initial meeting of where we were whenever our paths first crossed. So as we begin to catch up and chop it up and talk about things, people, situations, circumstances and stuff, it became exciting to me. And of course, there were a lot of things I was saying, well, let's don't talk about that, or we'll talk about it later, or, certain things that are a little sensitive and we can't delve into them, and we're not going to go into them now. But this is where I'm going. I'm going to make my point, then I'm going to let you jump all in a few minutes. Just so happen we are both in the same place of writing autobiographies or books. I didn't ask you if your book was an autobiography. I'm just going to take for granted it has some autobiography-ish stuff in it.
Kinda. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't want to call mine that, but all of the critics say, well, yeah, that's what it is. So I'm just going to say, okay, we're just writing books and they'll be where they be. But we both realize that the place that our paths crossed, we're both going to share some of those experiences in our book experience, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so this is going to be a little, what is the word? We have to be careful with what we say. Well, let's just choose to be. We don't have to be anything. Let's just try to be as careful as we can. But what I want to do is talk about, without talking about it, that experience on a scale from 1 to 9. No, really, 1 to 10. On a scale from 1 to 10, how has that experience, and you know the one we're talking about, how has it shaped your life from the initiation of that place, that season, to this very moment? On a scale from 1 to 10, how has it impacted your life?
I would say I would give it a 7.
Okay. Now, without giving me too much information and or details, how so?
And the reason I say 7, because one would think that I would say 10 based on what, the experience was and where we were. Because there were 4 similar situations, well, 3 prior to that one, that I had dealt with, that I had gone through and I had healed through. And because of those experiences, I learned. And as I learned, when I was met with the same type of challenge, I was prepared. So by the time that experience that we're speaking of happened, I knew how to fight. And it was like, whatever. And so it didn't make it hurt any less, but it made me survive it and weather the storm much better. So that's why I
Okay.
give it a 7.
I heard a key word, hurt. So the impact that experience had in your life left you with a level of emotional pain?
Oh, absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely.
Um,
And pain, and the thing is, but it doesn't linger. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. When we go through things, through challenges, experiences, and it doesn't mean that we don't hurt. Some people, you see their hurt, you see their pain on the outside because they wear their emotions and feelings on the sleeve. And with some people who are private grievers or private sufferers or whatever, we do it behind closed doors. And then we walk around with that acronym, never let them see you sweat. I mean, not acronym, what's the word I'm looking for? Idiom. That idiom, never let them see you sweat. So we walk around with that idiom kind of blazing. And I'm one of those, never let them see you sweat. But behind closed doors, I'm sweating bullets or maybe crying crocodile tears. But I was able to deal with it, and then I don't give it long. I give pitiful about 2 or 3 days, and then I have to get up from it. I can't wallow in my pain and in my misery. I have to get up and figure out how to do something about it.
um, did that experience stop you, slow you down, and or give you more propelling power?
That's interesting because it didn't stop me. It really, the timing was horrible. It made some things a little difficult for me to figure out.
So that means it slowed you
But
down, maybe?
yeah,
Okay.
I would say I wouldn't really say it slowed me down. It just made the I would say it made the journey a little more tedious. But it definitely gave me a desire to keep going. And I didn't slow down or stop. It was just hard for a bit. It was hard for about a year or two. But once I got past it, I was sailing.
Okay. Well, just a quick note on me. It did stop me. It slowed me down, and it totally changed my whole path. I said all those things that you're saying. I was saying I'm not gonna let anyone see me sweat, but I couldn't avoid it. I was totally wet from sweat. So when I was out anywhere, you could almost see it. So it did stop me. It slowed me down and it changed my course. But I asked that last question, did it propel you? After I went through the initial healing part of it, it did put me in a place of where I insisted that, okay, I cannot let this situation stop me completely. And I definitely can't let it stop me from reaching the destination. There were things that I wanted to do and places I wanted to go. So it did, propel me. But even to this day, even this moment, the fact that I'm talking about it, it did have an impact on me. And there are still quite a few unanswered questions that I have convinced myself that I'm never going to get the answers to, and maybe I'm not supposed to. But I still have a little teeny tiny speck of a chip on my shoulder as to why I didn't get a certain type of closure from certain people or a person. So, do you have any questions or any closure for you in that situation?
I don't have questions. I do have closure. I learned to exercise what I like to refer to as the gift of goodbye. There are some things I just have to say goodbye to. It doesn't mean that, I cut people off and just, if God sees fit, then I don't see them or experience them. I don't go out of my way. I'm not one of those people who I don't like somebody and I avoid the street they live on, that kind of thing. That's just too much energy. But I did, it took me a while. Like I said, it took me a couple of years to kind of, drive through the experience and find my level of normalcy and my level of comfortability. But once I did, I was fine. And over time, because I left it where it was, I moved forward, and I didn't look back. I knew I was not going to look back into to that extent as to where I was. I knew that once I left that, I was never going back to it in the same way.
Right.
Doesn't mean I cut anything off, cut anybody off. I just kept moving forward. And I think in moving forward, because I got so and wrapped up into what my life was, where my life was at that time, I didn't have time to think about what was going on there and what, whether or not, who shot John and whether or not who liked me, who didn't like me. However, whatever the situation is, I didn't have time to deal with it because I was focused on where I was going. And you can't move ahead if you keep looking back.
That's
so
true.
I just kept moving. And in keeping moving, I was like, oh, and I'm not bothered at all. I have closure. I had no open wounds because I think one of the things, the difference between your situation and my situation, even though they're extremely similar in the instance of what happened, I think the difference is because I had experienced like situations before it, which actually I wrote about.
Okay, you just said your experience and my experience, although they were different. What I did learn in just my conversation with you is that you might have a little more information on my situation than I do. Maybe you were left behind a little longer than me and got to hear and see and maybe even experience, but I heard a few little nuggets in our just chopping it up that you might have something. And I didn't ask you any of the details yet, but you said my situation is different and our situation is different. Well, similar, but different in that you may have, it was my first experience and you had gone through it a few times before. What other things about our experiences are different other than that you can think of?
I think that whatever led to what you experienced and how you encountered the issues that you did, I think I was probably in a position to be more, what's the word I'm looking for? To be embraced more so than you were.
Okay.
And I had some forces that were, 100% team me.
Right.
And, my whole nature of coming into that situation was that the very situation that was the situation is what brought me there. I was brought there specifically by that particular person.
So you recognize that where you had a little more, and for lack of a better word, a little more support, I was kind of alone.
Right.
So yeah, I was that sheep that not wandered away, but I just didn't have the protection around me, and that's what happens. Yeah.
You did.
And then at that time, I guess I was so young. And what word did you use for me earlier? You called, I was a little, maybe, I don't want to say sensitive, but I just didn't know my own power and inner strength. Although I exercised it overall, I just didn't realize how much power and strength I had to stand up a little more, for myself.
You were because of some of the other external circumstances in your life at that time, you were very vulnerable. And the vulnerability that you experienced in your personal side made you a little, less able to stand through that stuff. Then, because and trust me, the average person, the average person probably couldn't have survived what you did. And, in your natural situation, and then to experience what you did at the hands of the other situation that you were in, to compound that was a lot.
So my
already
audience,
fragile, already vulnerable, but then to be, then to have no support.
right? Okay. So my audience has no clue what we're talking about on purpose, and it's okay because again, you don't have to know the messenger to get the message, and you don't have to know the details to get the gist of, the point we're making. And, just for the record, we're just talking about an experience that we both went through at a season where our paths crossed at the same crossroad, and we both were in different places and went different ways, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, and physically, of course, after
Exactly.
that. And the impact. Here's another question I want to ask you. Of course, we can't get from A to C without passing by B. I'm trying to set up what I'm saying, but do you regret that experience, or are you glad for it? Or do you, if you could like turn back the hands of time, would you have totally went around that experience?
No, you know what? When it comes to experiences like that, I don't really necessarily dwell on whether or not I have regrets. There may be some instances in life that I did, but there were some positive things that I did out of the experience, out of just being in the atmosphere, that some information and knowledge and connections and relationships that I acquired that are extremely valuable. So I understand the process of change and growth, of seasons. And it was a season. Now, the situation that happened, or should I say situations, because there were a few situations that I endured, because my time there too was a lot longer. So the situations that I endured were very, very hard. However, the gain was better. I got more, like the song says, all of my good days outweigh my bad days. And so I had more good than bad. It's just that the bad was so bad, and the worst was what allowed me to exit.
Right.
And when I exited with experience, with information, and a few more relationships that were of value that I still have. And those things were worth, that. But I knew that I could not have spent a decade in it, which was why I believe that the door opened for me to get out. The Bible, well, the book, your favorite book says.
You can say the Bible. I was just being funny.
Okay.
Okay, you can say the Bible.
And, I will always provide a way of escape, and I got my escape.
So of course our experiences were different. My time was different, and you're talking about the good and the bad. I don't think I had any bad times in terms of my purpose. I think my bad times had to do with the lessons that I needed to learn. Does that make sense? Because, during that season, I had fun. I enjoyed, what I was called to do. But there were things that I did not understand that now I clearly understand. And that's what made it difficult for me. That's what made the pain so severe for me, because I found myself going, what did I do? Or why are they doing this? Or why did this happen? Or why did it happen this way? Why couldn't I fit in a little better? Why didn't it work out? And I clearly see now it really wasn't supposed to. I was only supposed to be there for the experience that got me to where I am today, which is going to now change gears. We're going to change gears. Thank you for sharing that information. We both have books. Looks like yours is going to be coming out much sooner than mine, and congratulations. I really want to support you totally. And on purpose, we're not going to say your name or about your book. Now, I think I'm going to ask you to come back, and we will do a different kind of interview to actually promote what it is you're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and get your word. You'll come back for that promotion for me.
I will definitely come back,
because I want to sew into that for you, if nothing else, but to, expose it in my own way, because I have a way of marketing stuff. But this is what I want to get to. We both talk about that experience in our book. How much are you saying Are you telling a lot or a little bit?
Well, I'm telling it in bits and pieces because I realized in preparing this particular book that, in writing it, that it was a little heavy, and that experience was about to overtake it because there were so many different things in my book that I talked about, though, and that was just a component.
Mm-hmm.
But that component took on a life of its own, whereas one chapter was becoming a whole book, which meant that it was a book. So I needed to take it out and deal with the 4 phases of that type of situation that I experienced.
Okay,
Remember,
so that's
I told
what.
you there were 3 experiences.
Right, you were saying the actual publisher was saying, okay, don't tell it all. Is that where you're getting at?
Right.
So
don't don't turn a fire hose on the people.
Right. Okay. Well, I don't know if you want to use that terminology because that almost sounds a little violent. You're just saying, yeah.
But when you're giving someone like information like that, it can really make. I went to a webinar, not a webinar, a seminar years ago, and a very well-known author. By the time he got up to speak, he said, "I bet you guys feel like somebody just attached a fire hose to your mouth," and then he opened his mouth with this expression, as if that expression,
right.
Like wow. And that's what I meant when I say turning on the fire hose, because I got that from this particular author, and that's what the publisher was explaining to me, and that's the analogy that I used. Like, that's what this is like. I cannot do that. I can't give them so much because this first release is really about how I overcame a lot of experiences, including that one. But that one it was taking on a life of its own because it is a story in itself that would take a whole book.
And you know what? I'm going to compare my situation kind of sort of to yours, and not to compare it, but just talk about the difference in a sense here. There were certain things that I mentioned, not only about the experience that we share, but other things. There were things that I mentioned in abstract, or certain things that I did not give detail, because I kind of want to leave the imagination. And I always, joke, and I said to you that I'm hoping maybe some famous, interviewers will want to interview me so that I can then go into the detail at that time. So unlike you're saving it maybe for another time or just turning it down a little bit. I didn't do that. I just kind of changed the direction of how much I would say and how I would say it to be a little abstract. That would definitely raise question that I could talk about at another time, because I don't think I want to write another book. I remember saying that about the first CD that I recorded. I don't think I want to do another one. But it just, it just happens. And now I see why artists record so many projects, because who I was that year, I'm not that caliber of musician the year after. And even now to this day, I look at the projects that I've done. It's like, oh, my God, please turn that off. That's not who I am. That's not, where I am. But, it was all who I was at that time. And now I'm thinking about, maybe moving forward. I don't think I want to write a book, but after this one is published and I have more experiences, maybe I have, experience at being an author, maybe I will want to write again. But I kind of emptied myself so much with as much as I could come up with. And I don't know, I'm going to shop, your publisher, and I hope they don't tell me to save some of it or cut back, because I don't want to do that. I want to go ahead and let it all out. Then maybe I can explain it later. So I kind of get your point. I guess you were okay with that. You wanted to tell it and you got it out, but now you just have to control it, is what you're saying. Gauge it.
Well, the thing was, because it didn't fit. It didn't fit the overall message of what I was writing. It was too much of one experience that I was sharing over all of the other experiences, where there was so much life. And because it was an empowering and encouraging and uplifting kind of book, I needed to tell that story at length, along with the others that are like it, in its own book, because it is an area that people need to be helped in.
Now I get it.
So there you got it. Now you get it.
Now, and you know what I'm afraid of? I think I've put so much into mine. It's almost like I really want the input of the publisher we're discussing because I know that this publisher knows. I'm almost like, you know how I say we don't want to hear from God because we're afraid what God might say. Not that I'm comparing to, this publisher as God at all, but I do know that, they know what they're talking about. So what I'm saying is like, I kind of want it all to be out there. And I don't want to edit nothing. Man,
But it may, you know what the thing is? It may need to be. It may need to be because, like I said, even though the experience that we went through was similar, but they were yet different. Like I said, what you experienced, you're writing specifically about that.
Well, no,
hold on.
Hold on a second. I think what happened was, I see myself in what you're saying. There's a part of my book that kind of sort of took over the general purposes of, there's a lot of things in my book that are kind of even spread, but there's an area in my book that just overshadows so much. And I'm thinking, now I see what she's saying, because my book took a turn towards the end. I started getting into one thing that just kind of oh man, it's just taken over a lot. So I'm just saying, I'm wondering if I'll have to dial that back down. And I'm not doubting myself. I'm just kind of open now to, the strong opinion or input of someone who knows way more about book publishing than myself. Because all I want to do is just tell the story. I wanted to get it out of me. Now how it's channeled, I have to trust the publisher's, input on that. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good. And I do know that you will get the input needed, as I did.
Mm-hmm.
And once you come to the conclusion, like, okay, now I know exactly what my story is meant to convey. I know exactly who the audience is and what my whole purpose, my why for writing this. All of the pieces will make sense. And when we went through my why, me and the publisher, we went through my why, we went through the audience, we went through, because I'm planning to write, I was already planning to write more books. So we were discussing that as well, which is when it was suggested, okay, I think you're going a little too heavy on this story. And there were some other things that needed to be unpacked more that you only gave a blurb.
Right. That's good. And I'm excited.
That's another thing, because sometimes she talks you into unpacking. Right. And the unpacking is a process.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. You think that you've told it all until she says, okay, I need you to unpack that.
Right. And I'm excited, but I'm also nervous because I'm ready to publish. I'm ready to get on with it. And I don't want to be held back for unpacking, but I respect, I will respect, the input, and I'll leave it up to, the season that it's supposed to happen. I won't pick the fruit too fast, because now I think I was brought to this place, for this reason. But anyway, we're not going to go on. I appreciate your time. I do. The audience is probably going, what was this all about? Well, they're not supposed to know everything. This was an opportunity for me to talk to you, for us to chop it up again. And maybe this conversation will find its place, especially after our projects have been, published and they're out there. We can talk about it some more. And I hope that we can, because, man, it's almost a shame not to tell some more.
I know.
And there's some things you just have to respect. It's like you have to respect the inside of your house, things that go on inside your house. And those were our houses or our seasons, at those times. And you have a level of responsibility to say, well, I probably don't need to say that or tell all that. But then again, why not? Why not?
True.
Because, when things happen, they kind of sort of happen kind of openly, and you almost can't let situations just, happen and then just die off. It's like, what caused this? Did that really happen? Because, what does the word say? Our testimony can, we are, come on now, help me out. We are, what happens by the words of our testimony? Come on now, help me out, scholar.
We overcome the blood
Yeah.
of the Lamb, the beast by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony.
That's what I'm talking about. So when we talk, we're sharing our experience. That's like our testimony, and we can even get more delivered. You're trying to say, and I hear you talking bad talk, saying you're all over it and everything. Who knows? Once you unpack some more, maybe you might get delivered some more. Maybe you may overcome some more.
I'm sure sometimes there's residue
Yeah.
that we don't realize is there.
Right.
But I can honestly tell you, I don't lose any sleep.
Okay. Well, not only have I lost sleep, I have a few dreams sometimes. Let me tell you this, and then I'll let you go. I tell this to my assistant that I work with. I have these reoccurring dreams about my radio history career. And I know it's tied to something. I wish I had a dream interpreter. I have quite a few dreams that are considered reoccurring. But I have this dream sometimes that where I'm running out of time, with my spots, like as an on-air personality. I used to have spots pulled and then music ready to go. And it's like I'm running out of time. And I have this dream at least once a month or every other month about not playing all the commercials that I was supposed to play in the stop set and hoping, like, just forgetting to do them, just playing so much music or just getting sidetracked to where I miss a whole stop set and then I have to go back and play. And it's just about running out of time, not being ready. And it has to do with being in a studio on air, and there's different studios. So I have reoccurring dreams about my radio history, and I want to get into that one day. Maybe I can afford a therapist that can help me get into what that's about. But anyway, your closing thoughts, and then I'll let you go.
My closing thoughts, this is an enlightening conversation. And, I know that, going through the process of revisiting some of our experiences can even do an extended amount of healing. A lot of times, when people think that if they've gone through something and they just bury it and leave it there, that there's nothing there. And part of what I wrote about is that I spent a lot of time in my life suppressing some of the negativity and not necessarily uprooting it. And a lot of times when you start discussing, you'll end up uprooting something else. And it's much like, and I'm not going to give all of them away, but it's much like with weeds that grow. When you pull the weed up by the root, you don't know what's in the ground or what fell from the ground, because weeds don't need anything to regenerate. Right. They just, the pieces that fall from the weed, and it regenerates itself. So the process of going through that soil and like sifting it is necessary. And there are times, even though you thought you have it all, there are times that a weed will still grow. And that's why it's important to continue to uproot.
Amen.
So I think that's what we did today. And I always feel great when I have a healthy conversation about experiences. They are, like you said, we overcome the beast by the blood of the Lamb and our word and the word of our testimony. And it is healing. And if not for just me to heal further, it's healing for somebody else. And those are my thoughts.
And here's the thing, and in closing, I don't think we're through. We've been chopping it up pretty good.
We're far from done.
Yeah, because there's so much more. I'm kind of enjoying talking to you, because it's like, I have one of my friends that I talk to a lot. And one of I have a few, pillars, that are close to me, but I haven't had a new one in a long time. And I just said, I haven't heard from you in over 10 years. I haven't seen you in 20 years. It's like, and it's almost like, man, like we've been chatting for 20 years. And I'm looking forward to catching up and just, really catching you up on what's going on with me. Because, oh my God, I got a lot of stuff going on. Good stuff. And I
can't do it all in one day.
Yeah. And I know you guys, and I got a whole bunch of questions.
I have plenty more. You haven't even heard the best of it.
Yeah. So, we'll take advantage of this time. And I, again, thank you for giving me this time. And I will, once your book is published, we'll come back on my live stream and I'll post it. Maybe you'll let me run a little commercial for you or something like that. We'll talk about that later. But I do want to do my part in, supporting and exposing. I definitely want to get, my copy and read it. By the way, are you going to do audiobook at all or no?
Yes, I am doing audio.
Okay. Well, they have this saying about your cousins. and we don't like to read stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and raise my hand and try to tip through. You know, if it's audiobook, I'm going to try to go for that because I like to listen. You know, I know I'm kind of, what is the word? I have that ADT, attention deficit thing, where if I start reading it, I just finished a book too. I was telling my audience, I finally finished the Stephen A. Smith book, Straight Shooter. It's pretty good. I like it. I enjoyed reading his book, and I read every page word for word, and it's really good. Respect to Stephen A. for the work he put into that book, and I know he's definitely got more books on the way. But yeah, so since you have an audio, just let me know how I can get that when it's time, and I'll get it. Otherwise,
Yeah, I will. The audio will be a few weeks after the actual publication.
Okay, well, in that case, because I do want to read yours, I'll probably have read it already, but then I'll listen to it again. But anyway, thank you for your time. I sure do appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Okay, I'll call you back in a few.
Okay.
Bye.
SWYM. Say what you mean. As much as this information is designed to bring awareness to how we listen, hear, and process, it is also a form of therapy. The little person inside of all of us needs to be heard. As adults, even listening to ourselves is a form of healing, strengthening, and growth. It's okay to speak, talk, express yourself, and be heard, even if you're the only listener. If our testimony does anything at all for anyone else, that makes the continued effort worth the time. Get the words out. You'll feel better, and that's a promise. Thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it.
You know, sometimes it seems like all the good times are gone. But you got to keep on searching. You got to keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. For example, take me standing right here today. I would not be here with you if I believed the things that the people say. You got to keep on searching. Keep on searching. Keep it on the cool side. Keep it on the cool side. Keep on looking.